Here on the Big Play Sports Network. Good to have you along. And, of course, streaming live on Twitter as we do each and every day, Monday through Friday, 11 to 1. You can do that at Chico Show CLE. Also over on YouTube, find the show. If you are not subscribing already, just type in the Chico Borman Show, hit subscribe, and you are all set to go. It is a Wednesday, as we said. That means we're talking baseball as we do each and every Wednesday at noon. Brett Boone, the former All-Star second baseman, will join us. The Guardians with a 3-0 shutout. I think we've pretty much, I have, and I think if I have, then most people have, because I'm usually the one that's the optimist and, not even optimist, just, hey, let's not bury him in May. But I think right now it's just all about seeing the young guys. Hopefully the rotation continues to hold up. Logan Allen was outstanding last night, along with the bullpen. But we will talk to Booney about that and much, much more. Shohei Ohtani's injury and Dodgers are absolutely scorching hot. So we'll talk to him about all of that coming up after afternoon. If you want to join in the conversation, 216-626-7901. Again, that number, 216-626-7901. We got producer. We got Rob today. Rob, what's going on, bro?
It's good, Chico.
How you doing, man?
It's been a while, but I'm happy to be back. Excited to be in the producer chair one more time before I go back to school.
You're going back next week, right?
Yes, sir.
A proud BW yellow jacket. Have you been going through workouts or?
Yes, I'm actually very sore today. Been going through workouts, lifting, getting all that good stuff done. So.
Attaboy. I can't wait. I think we're going to. I told you this before, but I'm serious about it. We're gonna find. We've got creative people. Your fellow interns, Padone. So we're gonna find the Rob fathead on a stick, and I think I'm going to bring it into the gymnasium. See, I shouldn't have said anything because now you're going to be like, no. Don't allow this guy in the gymnasium.
See, that's like something my mom has always joked to me about. She'll be like, I want to get a big fat head of you. And I've always just been like, Mom, please.
Oh, we'll get her. Absolutely.
I'm a more low-key guy when it comes to that. Like, I'm going to be feeling embarrassed.
Get me in touch with Mama Rob, Mama Watson, and we will definitely, absolutely make that happen. We will collaborate and make that happen. All right. Let's start off the Browns and the Eagles. Now, yesterday, Rob, I don't know if you happened to tune into the show or not. Yesterday was a very spirited show. It was a fun show. Fanboy Nick, great social media guy, and I love Nick. Everybody knows that. But I was shocked going into after yesterday. Or going into yesterday's show, that he said that he's not a fan of joint practices, and it breeds contempt, it breeds fights, and by the way, it does, but that's okay. Like, it's not. There has to be some sort of ramp up period. As I said yesterday, the CBA limits them, and I get it. I mean, look, first of all, understand that the NFL, when we say the NFL doesn't allow certain things, they don't allow a lot of stuff now because they're worrying about getting sued. It's not that Roger Goodell has this soft spot in his heart, and we'll you talk to Bernie, you talk to players, current, former, like it's about lawsuits. So, okay, we're going to limit the amount of contact. We're going to limit the amount of hitting. We're going to limit the amount of time that you can spend. And so when you get an opportunity to have joint practices like the Browns had in Philadelphia for the last 2 days, I think you take advantage of it. Now, I'm not completely dismissing what Nick says. Like yesterday, Joel Bitonio said it best. Joel Bitonio said it best when he said there's a reason why joint practices are 2 days and not 3. Because if there was a third day, there would be. But, like, this is football, and this is the ramp up. These starters aren't going to play on Thursday night when they suit up for preseason game on Thursday night in Philly. Then you've got the last preseason game against Kansas City. And then, oh, by the way, and this is where things are a little bit different. I mean, you can't afford to lose any games. You can't afford to get off to a bad start. I mean, I preface all of it by saying that. but you've got 3 out of your first 4 in the division. Like, there's no, we'll just kind of ease into this. You got Joe Burrow if he's going to play, but either way, you've got Joe Burrow, the Cincinnati Bengals coming to town. You've got Baltimore in there. You got Pittsburgh in there. You've got Tennessee in there, which, okay, they might have a down year, but Mike Vrabel ain't rolling over for anybody. So that's going to be physical. So those first 4 games, and I mean, every team, here's the thing. This is not just the Browns. Every team is trying to, and this is now what makes the coach's job so much trickier, is that every coach is trying to find that balance to, okay, I want to have my guys fresh. I want to keep my guys healthy and injury-free. But at the same time, we've got to be ready to go, because when the bullets start flying for real in September, like, nobody can say, hey, wait a minute, we got to go back. We weren't ready. That's not how it works. And this is the balance. This is where, if you are the Browns, and it is more of a concern than, say, a team like the Steelers or a team like the Ravens or a team like, the Chiefs, for instance, when you're used to doing this over and over, you have the same core. The Browns are uber talented, but they haven't had all these guys together and doing it and had the success that you want. So there's still, physically, mentally, things that they got to work through, things that they've got to get ready for. No team, I firmly believe this, no team is ready for opening day. It's hopefully you're not less ready than the team you're lined up against. There are a couple of things that I'm concerned about, which we'll talk about specifically, but I think that's where, when we talk about joint practices, and yesterday got a little chippy, and yeah, I don't want anybody hitting Deshaun Watson either, and Joe Bitonio was absolutely right in what he said. That said, they needed this spirited, amped up kind of atmosphere the last 2 days.
I completely agree with the take of they need this. Me personally, like, I could just only compare it to myself as an athlete. Like, those scrimmages and the practices where we're going and
sure,
going hard, if you're always worried about injuries, you're going to be scared. You're never going to get anywhere. So you got to be able to put yourself in those situations. Maybe they don't have to be long, like a joint practice. They had some periods, some 7-on-7s, 11-on-11s, but without that, there's nothing and like you said, you cannot be fully prepared for that first game. It's always going to smack you in the face. You're always going to feel winded, all that adrenaline, all that pressure, that excitement. It's always going to be a whirlwind. So you just got to try to be as ready as possible. But I definitely think they could benefit from joint practices, especially against the defending NFC champ.
And, and here's the other thing. Now individually, okay, Miles, it wasn't serious. I think that's what set the alarm bells off for everybody. Oh my God, Miles hurt his foot. He's fine. Jack Conklin has a concussion. He's in protocol, and we'll see if he's fine. I'm not making light of that stuff, but it is football, and injuries do happen. Now, that said, I'm not worried about Myles Garrett being ready opening day. Of course he's going to be ready. Individually, like Nick Chubb's going to be ready. What does concern me, and this is where, when we start talking about opening day, if there's an area, I think, or at least it's being reported, that the Browns haven't really been at their best in, it's red zone. And so, there's still time. I mean, there's still, I won't say plenty of time. There's still time before the opener. But that stuff, like I said, now all of a sudden the Cincinnati game, it isn't just the first game. It's a division game. It's a team that, you're going to be, if all things go according to plan, you're going to be fighting tooth and nail with them and with Baltimore, and who knows, maybe even Pittsburgh for this division. We know how difficult the AFC North is. We know how difficult the AFC in general is. So, not being ready to roll, like the red zone, those are big drives. And especially against a team like, say, Cincinnati. Hypothetically, let's say Burrow is back. I mean, how many times did you hear Patrick Mahomes say it? And it took him, 4 tries before he got his first win against them? Guys, we can't afford to settle for 3. Now, that's a whole another issue with Cade York, which we'll get to, but we can't afford to settle for 3. We've got to get 6. That's Mahomes. That's Kelsey. That's the Chiefs. That's the high-flying offense. So, yeah, I have a little bit of a concern. Some of it is quelled a little bit when I hear, Elijah Moore wasn't in there. Amari Cooper, they're being very careful with. So they don't have their full complement, but it's the word that we keep using with Deshaun Watson, the comfort level. I think he's comfortable, but when you get down to the red zone and stuff like that, that's where everybody has to be on the same page. Like, we can talk about individual guys being ready. Joe Bitonio is going to be ready, okay? Myles Garrett, Nick Chubb's going to be ready. There's a reason why they have their days off, and they deserve them. As a team, though, when you get, okay, we're in the red zone, everybody, everybody has to be on the same page. And if you're not going to get 6. God forbid you're going to turn the ball over. I'm not overreacting here, I don't think. This is one area where it's been a common theme in camp. And you only get so many opportunities because these guys aren't going to play a whole lot, the ones. You want to make good on those opportunities is all I'm trying to say.
And I agree again. I kind of give pushback because I really don't like seeing the star players sitting. I get it. You want to keep them healthy, but I want everyone to be operating on full capacity. The goal would be to be in midseason form by week 1. That's how you hit the ground running. That's how when we get to these 3 games that are so important in the beginning of the season in such a tough division,
yep.
I want to see everyone ready to go. I mean, take your day off, but like I saw Mary Kay asking Miles if he was going out to see Messi play soccer. And there's a team curfew. He's like, no comment, but he might have gone to that. I don't know if there's any reports, but I just want to see everyone more focused. It's so close, and it's such a serious year. It's such a big year for the Browns. I need everyone to be locked in. You get your day off, but come back.
Preach. Intern Rod. Let me just say this. I never know. This is the beauty of you and working with different interns and all. I never know what angle which is good. I don't want to know. Like, we went through our NBA thing and the whole Donovan Mitchell, Jared Allen, and, you know your hoops, you know your sports. But I didn't know which angle you would come at. Yes, I hearing you say that, not because I agree with you, but it just makes sense. I don't even think it's a matter of like, oh, well, now you're reaching. It's just common sense. Like when Bernie and Hanford and damn, I love that show with those two guys. And, obviously I grew up and that was the era. So watching those guys, I remember going to camp as a kid, riding my bike to Lakeland Community College and watching these guys practice, and like they'd have, 2-a-days, real 2-a-days, and hitting and running in between practices. Ozzie Newsome running down Johnny Cake Ridge Road. It was like, this was, and you heard Bernie say, like, for me, I needed that to get ready for the season. I totally understand the CBA. Like, hey, change is inevitable. And sometimes changes for the better. And I think ultimately, yes, it is. They are taking into account player safety. Whether Roger Goodell truly means it or not, it is important. It is very important. That said, it is still, and this is kind of my point yesterday, it's still football. And this is not like, in September. It's why every year, as I said, no team's going to be ready. You especially see it on the defensive side of the ball with like tackling. I hope that's going to be different. But again, you're not getting too many guys to the ground. And that's why I think, especially for a guy like Jim Schwartz, I'm sure deep down, Jim Schwartz was like, good, I want to see these guys get fired up. I'm not saying the cheap shot stuff. Yeah, that's garbage. But you want to see guys, and that Philadelphia is Philadelphia for a reason, right? They came out day one. And, it was good practice. They wanted to make a statement yesterday. Like they were, and that's kind of the bravado, that's the swagger that a team like Philadelphia has that the Browns are trying to get to. And you know what? If they pissed off the Browns along the way getting there, so be it. Like they're getting ready for their season, and they know that's how they have to be. Guess what? When you're trying to get to a certain point, be a certain team, you go about it different ways. I'm taking notes. I want to do what Philly's doing. I want to do what other teams are doing to get ready. And that's where like it or not, fair or unfair, or positive or negative, or optimistic or pessimistic, whatever, until the Browns prove that, and we see that week 1, and we see that in the month of September, I feel vindicated saying I believe it when I see it. They have talent galore, but I'll believe it when I see it.
I mean, like you said, you want to copy what you see is working in the NFL. It's a copycat league.
Yep.
One of the hardest training camps all players talk about is playing for Coach Andy Reid. He puts his players through the ringer in training camp, and that's why his teams are ready to go when the season comes. Another thing, I feel like the resting sometimes works against player injury prevention in a way, so they're going on and off too much. And there's a way you got to be prepared and conditioned, like getting comfortable being sore to the point where you don't notice it. And I feel like some of those players teeter that line, and it's the same thing with NBA. They load manage, they take the days off, and then when it's time to really go, you see the soft tissue injuries and the pulls and all this here and there. So if it was me, I would have everyone going as much as possible unless it was an actual injury. And then you would be able to manage it. There's people that are paid a lot to manage them and know when they're doing too many reps and whatnot. So.
I'm glad you said that, because I was just about to say, when you're talking about soft tissue injuries, because those are the ones that, look, unfortunately, Jakeem Grant last year, an Achilles, a knee. Like, you hate to see it, but it happens. It happens in a guy's working out. It happens a guy in practice. It happens during a game. But the soft tissue injuries are the ones that, like, you're trying to, and I think you can almost overthink it. And to some degree, and I think it's kind of what you're saying, you can correct me if I'm wrong, sometimes they do overthink it. Like, remember Hard Knocks way back with Hugh in 2016? And this wasn't Hugh's fault. I'm just saying this is how the Browns did it, and most teams do. They were in a conversation. The coaches were in a conversation about who should practice, who shouldn't practice. And I think at the time it was it Greg Williams or who? I forget who it was.
Was it DC?
Yeah, that
Greg
was
Williams.
Yeah, they were basically saying, like, hey, I need this guy out there, offensive guy too. And I
Todd Haley.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was necessarily them that said it, but maybe an assistant. But they were basically saying to one another and Hugh and everybody, like, you know what? I understand that we're trying to monitor this guy, but I need this guy here. And I think Hugh's response was, and he's being told this from the doctors, well, he's an orange on the, like, it's color coded. Like, well, he's Dwayne Bowe he's in the yellow range with his hamstring. So that means it's a little tender. So we've got to proceed with caution. Like, I mean, they spend a lot of money on this stuff. These guys know a hell of a lot more than I do about it, so I'm not going to pretend to be a doctor or anything like that. But there is at some point where you just have to say, like, we got to go play. Okay? Not being reckless, but, Andy Reid. You think Andy Reid, because he's the laid back, Andy Reid, you're right. Andy Reid works their asses off. The other thing that Andy Reid has an advantage with, and the Browns are hoping to get there at some point, is, okay, I can rest guys like Mahomes and Kelsey, and because I know they're on the same page. Like, right now with the Browns, I understand why Deshaun Watson and Amari Cooper haven't had reps together. You go back to last year, and Cooper's not healthy when Deshaun's off suspension, and then you come here, and Amari Cooper has off-season core muscle surgery, so they haven't been able to hook up. I understand it, but I'd be lying if I said I'm not a little concerned about it. Amari Cooper's a pro's pro. I love that. I don't think he gets enough credit when we start talking about bringing in this guy or that guy. And Amari Cooper, when healthy, is a stud. But timing, and it really is a game of inches. And I'd be lying if I said I'm not concerned about them going into the season more so than I think other fans would be of certain teams. Just that simple.
It's honestly weird because I feel like I'm more confident in DTR connecting with Cedric Tillman than I am with, Deshaun Watson and, like,
Good
Donovan
point.
Peoples-Jones. Like, at least I've seen it, and I know they're getting the reps. And everyone was really excited about Deshaun's drive, but I felt like it was really They played it safe. We ran the ball. We had a couple scrambles, but I'm just not sold yet. Just because it's the Browns. I've been cheering for this team forever. Like going in, just expecting the best has never really worked out. So I need to, like you said, they got to show me. I got to be shown, and hopefully week 1 they're ready. But right now, all the days off, they're playing like they're a team that's already won something in a way with some of that stuff, in my opinion.
And they need to be, I mean, when I hear, and I have to be careful about this. We all have to be careful about this. We're not there. We're not seeing what's going on behind the scenes. But, like, when you hear reporters both for Cleveland and Philadelphia say, yeah, the guys from the Eagles, like, yesterday was a good day, not because they got all chippy or anything like that, but because they're focused, they were laser focused. They were fired up. And this is Philadelphia. You could say, come on, man, they're the NFC champs, and they're just okay, yeah, we'll be ready. They came out with their hair on fire because they know you practice how you play how you practice, and this is where we're at right now. This isn't the Hall of Fame game anymore. Like, they're not going to get Thursday, none of those guys are going to play. Then you've got Kansas City, none of those guys are going to play. And I realize that everybody else, you're trying to get a look at the entire roster, but this is where the Browns don't have the advantage that other teams do. Philadelphia, Kansas City, Pittsburgh. Like you talk about all the perks that go along with being a great team and being not even just a great team, a consistently great team, is that you do feel and for the most part you are ready to roll by week 1. No team, I'll repeat it again, no team is ready to go week 1 because you can't. It's just a matter of you don't want to be way behind the 8 ball. But the teams that have been there before, the teams that have done it, the teams that have leadership and focus, like they have a huge leg up and an advantage. It's not just, they're the defending champs. Well, how did they get there? How have they continued to be in the mix? How have the Chiefs continued to be in the mix? Well, you got to have talent. Nobody's, there's no exception there. You've got to have talent, but equally as important is you've got to have the right mindset. And that's where, like, people can yell at me all they want and say, well, you're being so pessimistic and, why don't you being more optimistic about the Browns? Hey, talent standpoint, 10, 11 win team. But if you think I'm going into week 1 saying, oh, yeah, the Browns are going to win, they're going to beat Cincinnati, they're going to beat – I got to see it. And if some people out there can't take that, or they're too fragile and say, well, maybe if you'd be a little more optimistic, shut up. I mean, they've got to prove it. This is the NFL, period.
And if you're being realistic, Mike Tomlin has been as good for a near 500 or above season his whole career. So
coincidence? I don't think so.
You count out, that's 9-8 right there. You got the Bengals, Burrow, arguably the top 3 QB in the league. Some say number 2, depending who you're talking to. Lamar Jackson and the Ravens are retooling. Lamar really plays well with a chip on his shoulder. We have no room to come into the season and just mess around. Also, we got a lot of West Coast games. We know the Browns historically traveling to the West Coast struggle a little bit. Do you want to be figuring out things like our timing on routes when it comes time to travel to Seattle and we need that win against the Seahawks? Like, it's just, we got to be ready, and I'm hoping they're stressing that in practice.
And, there's another big question mark here, and it's not all doom and gloom. This is just reality. There's another big question mark here. Every team, remember Kansas City last year? They got off to that slow start, and everybody's like, oh, what a colossal mistake. You traded away Tyreek Hill. You guys severely underestimated how much the offense needed. No, it was just like everything. Timing, even Patrick Mahomes, okay, now I got to adjust a little bit. We're not going to be as vertical, but that guy's still all uber talented, and he can still get it done. It just took a little bit, and once they did, they were fine. But every team faces adversity, including the Kansas City Chiefs last year. But if you remember, they didn't blink. There was no finger pointing. There was a little bit of talk about Mahomes and Bieniemy yelling at each other going into a half. But you know what? That was more that was just, two guys competitive, and it was squashed and it was done. And hey, I love you. Same deal. I respect you. Here, though, like, I don't know how they're going to react to adversity, and it's going to happen. I hope it's not right out of the gate, because I feel like the Browns, I don't know if they can handle that. Again, I'm still, it's what have you done for me lately? And the past couple of seasons, certainly last year, that was finger pointing. That was the exact opposite of what a championship or a playoff caliber team does or handles adversity. You can give me all the freaking talent in the world, but if they're pointing fingers, now everybody says, well, this is where Jim Schwartz comes in for Joe Woods. I think there's some degree of truth to that. But like I said, there's gonna be adversity. I hope, because I was really in reading a lot of the reports from yesterday, and it just makes sense, right? You're going to talk to Philadelphia players about Jim Schwartz. Fletcher Cox, I think I tweeted it out, that one of the comments he made was, Jim Schwartz doesn't give a damn where you were drafted. Jim Schwartz doesn't give a damn how much you're making. Jim Schwartz he wants you to practice. Jadeveon Clowney, he wants you to practice unless you absolutely can't walk, and you're going to play hard. And if you don't, you won't be a part of it. Like that mindset. Joe Woods, I think, here's what I think. I think Joe Woods, his schemes were complicated from everything you hear. I almost think he was too nice of a guy. Like, you have to have a little bit. They didn't have that last year. Hopefully that's the case, but we'll find out. Because when you have adversity, are you going to have that same finger pointing? Are you going to say, like, well, this is the reason? Is the defense going to be pointing at the offense? Or is it just, we're fine, we'll take care of it, we'll be all right? I don't know. Only time will tell there.
I'm really expecting big things from the defense this year. And because honestly, I think that's what's going to have to carry us. I know it's an offensive league, but I feel like our edge on opponents this year will be still being able to control the clock with the best back in the NFL and getting after the passer when we get them in a third and passing down. And we got Myles Garrett, Zadarius Smith. We're scheming up blitzes. We got all these safeties, really athletic linebackers. I think that is where we can make a difference than the other teams in our division, where we could really make some waves. But hopefully Jim Schwartz is that guy that could light a fire under these guys, because honestly, I think, like you said, Joe Woods and even Kevin Stefanski are both too mellow and too nice to really light that fire under people sometimes.
Yeah. I think Kevin, I think he's learning, like when you make the jump from coordinator to head coach, it's a huge jump. There are just some guys, and I'm not saying this about Kevin, but maybe it will be the case. There are some guys that are the best coordinators in the world. They are the best offensive minds or defensive minds. But when it comes to being a head coach, it takes a special person. I think that's in there for Kevin, but I'd be lying, like you were just saying. When push comes to shove and you got to come down hard on somebody, and not just Perrion Winfrey. Like, well, I don't like the way, Miles did this, or Zadarius Smith, or like, you've got to be willing, and I'm not calling those guys out. I'm just saying, hypothetically, you've got to hold those guys accountable. It's no secret, and I know I've beaten the dead horse in this issue. It's no secret why New England and Belichick were able to do what they did for so long. It's because Tom Brady was held just as accountable, if not more, than the 53rd guy on the roster. We don't have that. People can tell me till they're blue in the face that, oh, that's BS. It's not. It's not. And, will they get there this year? I hope so. But this is where, like, if you want to take the next step, those are the next steps. That's what other teams. You mentioned Tomlin. Great point about Tomlin. Like, I've actually got I got more respect for Mike Tomlin than I ever did, and I had a lot of respect for him before, because we now are understanding all of the shenanigans and drama, whether it be Antonio Brown, whether it be Juju Smith-Schuster, whether it be Le'Veon Bell or whoever, Big Ben even, because he was a drama queen. Mike Tomlin was able to, when they needed to get focused, they were focused. That's why, to your point about the Steelers this year, admittedly, I think I'm not a huge Kenny Pickett guy. Maybe he takes that step. I'll believe it when I see it. But to your point about There's nobody you're looking past. I may not think the Steelers are the team that they've been years past, and that's true. That is my opinion. But if you think that Mike Tomlin and the Steelers are not going to be ready on Monday night, and when I say ready, I don't mean like, oh, yeah, hey, I mean like pumped up, ready to kick your ass. We're tired of hearing about, all the Browns have. This is where teams are with the Browns nowadays and nationally. And I'm not blaming Deshaun Watson. It's not just Deshaun Watson, but that also, like, Browns fans have to come to the realization that they are not going to be a popular team, okay? They had their time, like in 2019, the Freddie year, like we thought, the buzz was there, and they were everybody's darling. Everybody's darling, not just here in Cleveland, nationally. You know what? Good for – and people nationally felt good about the Browns, and they felt good for Browns fans, mostly. Like, they still wanted their own teams, but they're like, you know what? Cleveland's been through hell. It's good that they're getting it. And then, well, that didn't work out. Then 2020, Kevin comes in, and I'm like, I fell for it as much as anyone else. Culture's already here. I mean, you go 11-5 playoffs, win a playoff game during a pandemic. How can you? That's the definition of being focused with all that stuff going on. No. So now, like, okay, you've been a team that everybody talked about, and all they did was let people down. So that's going to work against you. And you signed a guy who, while I think he's an exceptional quarterback, fair or unfair, like it or not, it's a controversial thing, and it's gonna follow him wherever he goes. I have no idea what happened, and I'll say it over and over again. All I know is he's not very popular right now. That's not going to change anytime soon. So I think fans need to get in their heads, like, you're not going to see, like, when people get all fired up about Adam Rank picking them to be 6-11. Oh, that guy should be fired. Oh, I don't think they're going to be 6-11, but you know what? I don't care about that. And if anything, that's what most people think. And I hate to say this, don't take this the wrong way, Browns fans. It's deserved. I mean, you got to. LeBron said it. Everything in Northeast Ohio is earned. Apparently, the Browns don't. Everybody has to earn something, with the exception of the Browns. And I don't get that mentality. Like, oh no, you got to be more positive. No, I don't. I need to see it. I need to see it just like I do from the Cavs, just like I do from the Guardians, everybody. I got to see it, and I haven't seen it with the Browns.
I was talking to Jack and Ryan because we were talking about that video. I saw him ask you that question in Fair or Foul. And personally, I was in agreement with the rankings. Like, I didn't think it was undeserved. Like, everyone was quick to jump like 6-11, 5-12. Like, there's no way. But I was like, we've seen it happen so many times. Don't act like it's impossible that this can happen. It's also possible that everything could go right. We've only seen that happen once or twice where we do get to double-digit wins. But to sit and act like we're just so deserving of just like, how dare you say the Browns could go 6-11? Like, you couldn't just see us going in this division 2-4, 1-5, and then losing all these travel games. We got like maybe one easy game on the schedule, but they're Houston, and maybe CJ Stroud's firing on all cylinders by the end of the year. You really don't know. So to just sit and act like 6-11 is impossible is something that I also hope the players aren't thinking, because when you think with that entitlement, that's when things could get really dangerous. Because then when you're going to play a Tennessee, you don't know who they're trotting out at quarterback, but then you get popped like you did the one year when we had Freddie Kitchens. Like, these are the things you got to worry about.
Yep. And that's just it. This is not a knock on Kevin Stefanski, but we know what Mike Vrabel is as a head coach. And he kind of comes from that Belichick mold. He kind of just comes from his own mold, too. He was a badass in college, and that's just how he's been his entire life. So, yeah, I mean, and remember what his comments were before that game, and then after the game, like, he had his team pissed off. Like, these guys, by the way, nationally, they're just, Browns have already beaten us, and this is their year, and they're at home, and their fans are going to be rocking. And Vrabel's like, I told them, why don't we go out and, what teams say when you're on the road, this playing sports, you're on the road, tough environment, all of a sudden it gets awfully quiet. That's like music to your ears. That place got quiet in a hurry and stayed quiet for a long time, for 3 hours. It's not, this is not me saying or Rob saying or anyone else saying like this is what I want to happen or think will happen. And I shouldn't have to preface it. I shouldn't even have to say that. But there are people out there that really believe, well, you're just being negative to be negative. No, I'm not. And it's not even negative. It's just being real. I mean, blow the doors off these teams to start the year. But adversity will come. Hopefully it's not a serious injury. Hopefully it's not a Nick Chubb or a Deshaun Watson. But, adversity does happen. How do you deal with it? And, well, we'll see. But I would say I'm excited about this year. I couldn't say that last year because I just didn't see last year everybody was so like the Browns will get to this point, then Deshaun Watson comes in, throws on the Superman cape, they win, they go to the playoffs. And ironically, it wasn't Jacoby Brissett we had to worry about. Jacoby Brissett was a stud. And I by the way, I loved that the greeting that he got as a member of the Washington Commanders. Like that tells you everything you need to know. Like if you can't root for that guy, something's wrong with you. Now, obviously, he doesn't play for the Browns anymore, but like ultimately what that ended up being wasn't Jacoby Brissett. Everybody, well, is Jacoby going to be able to hold down the fort? Your defense was a joke. You mentioned setting up, Miles and Zadarius Smith. First and foremost, you better be able to stop the run. I mean, if you are 28th, 29th, or 30th against the run, I don't care. You could be the 84 Dolphins. You could be Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. If you can't stop the run, you're not going very far. And for this team, we can talk all we want about all those things. I think it's going to be different there. I think up front, defensively, those guys stay healthy. They're going to play. You heard Jason Kelsey. I don't think Jason Kelsey is going to feed you BS. Like, he knows that, that's a talented group. Jim Schwartz is going to get the most out of them. But offensively, I don't know what to expect. I don't know what to expect.
And there was some terrible. Well, we got a report. Zach Jackson of The Athletic said yesterday, and this was from my guy Nick Padone. He sent us this article this morning. He said anything in 11-on-11s where Deshaun Watson had to throw from the pocket seemed to be an adventure for the Browns, and the offense was looking unimpressive.
And by the way, that also goes to because the other concern, red zone. Like, those are two things, and that's a big deal. Now, we will say that if we go back to the Washington game, and my guy Eric Edholm with NFL.com said it best. Earlier in the week, I talked about it. He said his fight or flight response was great. Like, he knew exactly when, I'm going to tuck it and go, or I need to scramble, or he also knew when I'm just going to stay right here. I'm going to step up in the pocket, climb the ladder and, fire one. But it hasn't been consistent. So you've got those two things. You got that thing, and you've got the red zone issue. Those are big things. And I don't know how much more time you're going to get. Elijah Moore, unfortunately, was banged up. He's going to be fine opening day. I'm not Amari Cooper's going to be good to go opening day. Elijah Moore is going to be good to go opening day, barring something unforeseen. But are they all going to be on the same page? I don't know. I mean, nobody can say definitively they're just going to be clicking on all cylinders. And before anyone says, well, hey, it is the first game of the season. Yeah, you're right. But unfortunately, there's no breaks in the schedule. 3 of those first 4 division games, that could be the difference when you're talking about week 14, 15, 16, 17. Like, man, I wish we had, September back. Can't do it.
Speaking of the red zone.
Yeah.
That's just a recipe for losing games, and I feel like you got to – in the NFL, I saw the Browns had 6 or 7 games last year where we didn't put up 20 points. That's just – I don't think that's the ticket anymore in this league where everyone's so high-powered, everyone's throwing the ball around. You got to be able to put points up, and it starts in the red zone. And it also comes with making field goals, if you have any thoughts on that. They did say he looked good. They said he was about 4 for 4 yesterday.
6 for 6. And he was hitting them 48, 51. And, I mean, it's good. Because here's the thing. I do think Bubba Ventrone, we went through this last year with Prefer. Like, there has to be something mechanically that he can do better. But ultimately, it is here. And that's why, like, it's the most mentally challenging position in football. Like, I quarterback, obviously, but I mean, like, everything comes down to you. And, you're either the hero or the GOAT. And, the game can change. I know I say it. I'll say it for the 5,000th time, and I want you to roll your eyes, because you roll your eyes better than anybody when I say certain things. Little things become big things. Yes, there you go. And yes, I do say it way too much, but I say it way too much because it's so true. And yeah, hitting field goals, end of the half, you got the ball to start the third quarter. Again, this is what great teams do. You got the ball to start the third quarter. You know what? Okay, we can't drive down the field. We don't have the time really to get 6. But you know what? We definitely know what we're going to do. We've practiced this 100 times. We know exactly what we're going to do to get into Harrison Butker's field goal range or somebody's field goal range, and he'll boot it. We'll get 3 going into the locker room. Will we like 6? Sure. But we got points, momentum going in, and then we get the ball to start the half, and then you score. Momentum changes. And I remember the first game of the season, that happened for him. And Cade York, in my mind, I'm like, those little things are becoming big things until, well, they didn't. And then it went downhill. It changes play calling when you can trust your kicker. It opens things up for, okay, we can feel free to do this, or this, or you can also get more conservative. Like, you can say, hey, instead of that interception to end the half, right? Because, Deshaun's trying to thread a needle and go deep, or they're playing, dime coverage and they've got 6 or 7 DBs back there. You know what? We can go underneath. We'll take what you're going to give us, because ultimately we believe that if we get to the 30, Cade York can knock in a 47-yarder. Do we believe that? Do they believe that? Most importantly, does Cade York believe that? Only time will tell, my man. Only time will tell. All right, you've got Fair Foul. You ready to go for Fair Foul? We'll take a break. We'll take a quick break. And when we come back, intern Rob with Fair Foul. Also, top of the hour, going to talk a little baseball as we do each and every Wednesday here on the Chico Borman Show. The former All-Star second baseman Brett Boone will be our guest. More of the Chico Borman Show to come right here on the Big Play Sports Network. All righty, welcome back. Chico Borman Show here on this Wednesday, heading, we're just shy of noon, so it's still Wednesday morning, but with you until 1, as we do each and every day, Monday through Friday, 11 to 1, right here on the Big Play Sports Network. Chico Borman Show broadcasting live from our studios here at Burke Lakefront Airport. You can find us on Twitter each and every day. You can stream us live from 11 to 1 at Chico Show CLE. Also on YouTube, go to YouTube, type in the Chico Borman Show, hit subscribe, and available now wherever you get your podcasts, available after the show. You can go back and hear back. And did Chico really say what I thought he said? Was he that stupid? You can check it out. Wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, iHeart, all of them. So check that out. Brett Boone coming your way top of the hour. But right now, intern Rob, he's on a roll, kids. It's time for a little fair or foul.
Right, Chico. Very first fair or foul question. To lead into what we were just talking about, fair or foul, you are confident in Kevin Stefanski to retool this offense and to see the Browns have a surge and make the playoffs this year?
Foul. Because, I mean, to say I'm confident, no. I'm hopeful. Like, I think he's a talented guy. He's a very good offensive mind. But, like, it's like everything else we said, prior to the break, and I've been saying for a while, like, until I see the red zone and, we see, them not turning the ball over, we see the timing, we see them not getting stuffed or turned away close to the goal line, I can't say that. So I'm very hopeful. The talent's there, but I can't say confident, so I'll go foul.
All right, next one, fair or foul. There were a couple clips surfacing of Cedric Tillman making some very spectacular catches in the joint practices these past couple of days. Fair or foul, the continued development of Cedric Tillman could lead to the Browns moving off of Donovan Peoples-Jones at receiver.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's absolutely fair. Here's the reality of the situation. Not only DPJ, but, Amari Cooper, the price tag's coming due. And I love Amari Cooper. I think I already said that. But when you've got, you can only pay so many guys. I mean, next year, Deshaun Watson's cap number is like $61 million or something. So, I mean, and that's, hey, we knew that going in. You wanted a franchise quarterback. Hopefully this is the guy. And if he is the guy, well, you got to pay the piper. So not everybody's going to be able to be signed. Like now all of a sudden, Elijah Moore, you might be looking at him long term. Now, he's another guy. He's been a huge focal point of the offense, so we're going to see more of that. But to your point and your question on Cedric Tillman, absolutely, positively, yes. And, I know I said it on draft night after they got him, but it bears repeating. This is a guy that dominated against some of the best teams in the country. Like he had the injury, that's why he slipped. But he wasn't dominating against La Tech we're talking Alabama. Georgia, he put up 200 yards. This guy is a stud. This guy is elite. And you talk about guys you're excited about. Yeah. He is the real deal. He stays healthy. I think the sky's the limit. So, yeah, I totally go fair on that question.
Staying in the wide receiver room, Amari Cooper, man you like, put out a comment saying that he would compare himself and Elijah Moore as a wide receiver duo to Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt. Fair or foul on Amari Cooper and Elijah Moore being able to live up to the expectations of that duo?
Okay, living up to those expectations, foul. I'm okay. I don't really have a problem with guys saying that, especially a guy that is, like, Amari's not one to just shoot his mouth off. He's about as professional and classy as it gets, I think. I think he's instilling some confidence. And if he feels that way, great. I think basically what he was saying is we all can remember if we were old enough, watching that group, the Greatest Show on Turf and Kurt Warner, but yeah, it was Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt, and then, my God, you had Marshall Falk in there. Every time I say Marshall Falk's name, you remember Pat Summerall, right? Broadcast. So when he would get late in his days, I mean, he was great. I mean, him and Madden, voice of football forever. But he really struggled in his final years. But he'd be like calling a Rams game, and like Torrey Holt would be streaking down the middle of the field, catching the ball. Pat Summerall he would just go, Marshall Falk. And like he didn't even have the ball. But there was a good chance he did have the ball, so he just kind of was like, Marshall Torrey Holt. But yeah, I mean, that's lofty. It could happen, but I'm totally fine with Amari saying that and making that comparison because that's what he's shooting for.
To go back to the rookies and saving some possible money in the future, DeJuan Jones has been very impressive for the Cleveland Browns so far at that right tackle spot. And with Jack Conklin in concussion protocol, I feel like all of us as fans are at least a little safe feeling we have DeJuan Jones there. Fair or foul, if he continues to develop and learn under our great O-line coach, DeJuan Jones could be a reason that we could move off one of our tackles and save some money this upcoming year.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I mean, we all know the story with Jed Wills. It's do or die time. You know, if he doesn't, then there will be no extension. And but clearly that message has been sent. I like Jack Conklin. The reality is Jack Conklin hasn't been healthy a whole lot. He's got a concussion now. Hopefully he's going to be back. Very, very good. But and this is important to remember. Like DeJuan Jones, from everything I'm hearing, they're not looking at him as a left tackle. Like apparently when you hear from like NFL scouts and guys that know a hell of a lot more about this than you and I do as far as offensive line play, he's much more suited to be a right tackle. But yeah, I mean that all of a sudden you look at guys like Cedric Tillman and you look at guys like DeJuan Jones. Hell, Ronnie Hickman's looked pretty good in camp. I don't want to say that they're absolutely buy in, but you know what? Why do you think the Chiefs they are where they are? Sure, you have Mahomes, and sure, you have Kelsey. You know how many guys they started on defense last year, first year? 6. I mean, if you hit on those guys, those are the ones that I think, like I said, with the Chiefs, you get so caught up in the stars, but Creed Humphrey and the guys they had in the secondary, those guys hit, and now you're off to the races. So that is a big, big deal. They're not ready yet, and DeJuan Jones is going to take some time, but How about him yesterday, by the way? I'm not messing with my quarterback. Like, you got to love that, man. I mean, got to love it. So, yeah, it would be very, very beneficial for so many reasons to see those guys pan out. They'll make Andrew Berry look really, really good.
Moving on to one final Browns question. We were touching on it a little bit earlier. Jason Kelsey talking about he had rave reviews for the Browns defensive line. Last year, Myles Garrett ranked second in the NFL in sacks, yet the Cleveland Browns were 27th in the entire league in total sacks.
What does that tell you?
Fair or foul, the Cleveland Browns can turn it around this year and at least be a top 10 team in sacks and QB pressures, hits with this revamped defensive line.
Fair, and I think they better. Myles is, this isn't on Myles. And I mean, when I say things about Myles and like the leadership, I mean, it's not he's a great leader. I mean, maybe I want him to be someone he's not personally, and that's not fair sometimes. But as far as like what he's going to do, what he's capable of, he's an absolute freak. I mean, the bend that he gets, when we talk about the comparison to Nick Bosa, like it's 1A and 1A, and you don't even know, like, I think Bosa's better with his hands, and he's extremely athletic. But I think Myles, I've never seen anybody bend the way he can. Like, when you watch him go down near a guy's ankles to get around a tackle, and he's 6'5", 270, that is ridiculous. That said, though, they're going to be chipping him. Teams are, You're going to be chipping him. You're going to be, you're going to be focused on him. That's why you go out and you trade for Obo. You bring in Zadarius Smith. Hopefully these guys are going to be able to complement him, because now it's not just those guys or Miles getting the quarterback. It's making it easier for Miles, and then these other guys obviously are able to make some hay as well. So, yeah, I'm going to go fair on that. I mean, and if not, then that's a colossal failure, because that's the reason they spent the money, used the draft capital, is to give Myles Garrett some help on the other side.
All right, final fair or foul question, and I wanted to ask this one last to lead us into talking about a little bit of Guardians.
Okay.
14 games left, 4.5 games back. You still have a 3-game series left against the Twins. Fair or foul, the Guardians could still make some noise, or do they even want to make some noise, as in trying to push into the playoffs?
What do you mean, do they even want to? Yeah, of course they want to make some noise. Do they only have, 10. Oh, they got more than 14 games left. Yeah, they're at, 100? They've got about 40 more games left.
When I counted up, I missed up.
That's all right. That's all right.
14 games left this month.
Yeah. Still got all of September. And, okay, I don't think they will. I don't think they're going to make, again, that division, we've been saying it since day one. That division is there to be had. Minnesota has been up and down too, but you're looking at the Guardians lineup, and I'm as optimistic as anybody. The rotation, and by the way, Bybee and Williams are both now looking like future ones, which is really, really encouraging. Tristan McKenzie, and hopefully going to be healthy at some point, even if it's not this year. But position-wise, position players, for those that wanted to see the young guys, you're seeing the young guys, but this is what happens. They're struggling in the field. Gabriel Arias, Brian Rocchio, like, they're finding their way. The guy that we've got coming up next, all-star and former all-star and had a great career, he'll be the first to tell you, he has told us, it ain't easy. And so they're not going to make noise the rest of this year. I hope they do, but I'm not gonna bank on that. So, all right, good job, intern Rob. We're going to take a quick break, minute, and then when we come back, yes, we put it on the tee to introduce him, to bring him in. He's back from Mexico. Yeah, he looks like he's back in the friendly confines, no longer in Mexico on vacation. The former all-star second baseman. We'll talk to Brett Boone in 60 seconds. It's the Chico Borman Show. More to come right here on the Big Play Sports Network. All righty, welcome back. It is the Chico Borman Show here on this Wednesday. Good to have you along on the Big Play Sports Network. Stream us live on Twitter at Chico Show, CLE. Also on YouTube. If you are not already subscribing, please go there. Type in the Chico Borman Show and hit subscribe. This guy had a great career in Major League Baseball. He's a former, as Dan would say, former pro player. He's former all-star second baseman, and now the host of the Brett Boone podcast. And as I said last week, and I wasn't blowing smoke, he's kind of taking it to new heights. I mean, whether it be Hollywood, whether it be the Poppies of the world, big Poppies of the world, and former athletes, he's killing it. Brett Boone joins us. Booney, first of all, you look very refreshed, retooled, and ready to go after the Mexico vacation. Did everybody enjoy themselves?
They did. They did. I'm kind of reeling this morning. I went to Santa Barbara yesterday. Went shopping with one of my twin boys who's checking into his sophomore year of college. Got some sheets for him, duvet, comforter, trash can, and took him to dinner and then headed home. So I'm reeling a little bit this morning. I'm a little bit tired.
That's
so
okay.
I'm glad I look refreshed though. But I drove 8 hours yesterday and did a roundabout. So
Well, we appreciate you taking the time, Booney. Yeah, you do look refreshed and ready to go.
well, I got to get ready for golf today. I got a big golf match.
Did I see a picture of you and your son? He's in a fraternity? Did I see Sigma Chi?
Yeah.
I think.
No, Sigma Pi.
Sigma Pi. I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, Booney, are you? That's you know.
I got a little
you've-
fraternity life. I walked in yesterday. Okay. Now I'm not we've all done the college thing.
You were busy
park
playing
where we-
baseball. Yeah.
We park where we can at times. And my rooms in college, they were nothing. They were not the epitome of cleanliness. However, I walked into his frat house yesterday, and I looked at it. It looked like a crack house. I said, it looked like somebody had a toga party with 400 people 6 months ago, and then just said, "Okay, we're done," and nobody cleaned up. That's what it looked like yesterday when I was moving him in. However, his room looked pretty good. Got to meet some of his buddies that were they're starting to trickle in now. Good guys. And
Sure.
it doesn't seem like it was that long ago, Chico. We were in college. It's been 30 years for me. And it seemed like, I don't know, it seemed kind of surreal, but it's cool seeing they all look happy and they all look excited. It's like it's a new season, but it's the frat season.
Well,
so I got to tuck him in.
I was just gonna say. So Bohm was in a fraternity as well. He's not here with us. He's on the road with his gigs. I was in a fraternity as well. Actually, as luck would have it, I think we were like just a couple houses down from one another. Although I'm much older than him. And yeah, it's kind of, you walk in there and I remember like when I'd have relatives or friends visit, usually relatives, because the friends kind of knew the college scene, but relatives would come in and they'd be like, this is where you live? Oh yeah.
It's a swallow.
Like, now, are you concerned at all? Like, cause you want him to do well. Are you concerned at all that it is going to turn into Animal House and he might get swallowed up by the toga party?
No, my youngest boys, yes, I had the most concern for them. My older two were at easy, easy transition. They were straight A's. They got stuff done. My younger two, I worry about them a little bit. But Judah, who's the one I was with yesterday, seems to kind of have made the turn. Yeah, he's a frat kid. He likes to have fun, but he seems pretty motivated. He got his grades on the right side of things last year. And he knows what's at stake this year. He needs to get a 3.5 or whatever he needs to get, and he's ready to go. And really, for the first time in a while, I left there yesterday. I know it's a party scene, and the kids are going to have a lot of fun. But at the same time, for the first time with this particular son, Judah, I thought this kid's got it together. He knows what he needs to do this year, and I left there, wasn't worried about him. So he's in a good place. I'm excited for him. As dads are. I mean, you only get to go around once as a father, and these are my last two that I'm kind of getting out into the world, and it's been a challenge, but it's been fun, and they'll find their way. At some point you got to let the kids, you got to drop them into the deep end and let them swim.
Yep.
I mean, there's only so much we can do as parents.
But
he's on the right way. I was never a frat guy, Chico. I was a member of all the frats.
But you were, here's the thing though, Booney, like your mindset, and some people have the mindset of, I'm going to be a professional athlete, and it's stargazing and it's dream. But you were pretty focused on, hey, I've got a shot to be a pro baseball player. Obviously it was in the G. So I wouldn't expect you to, you went to USC for a little bit, but you were focused on playing ball.
Right. I think if the circumstances were different, I might have been a fraternity guy. But at that time, and It was for me. It was baseball. I'm a baseball player. That's what I do. I'm going to be here 3 years. I'm going to get drafted. I'm going to go play in the big leagues for a long time. And I had my fun. I mean, I definitely had my college life as well. But unfortunately, at that time, SC being a baseball player, you really didn't need to be in a frat. You could kind of get into whatever frat you needed, whatever party you needed to go. So it was kind of cool not being in one because, like I said, I was a member of all the frats. Where are we going tonight? Who's having the big party? I got a buddy. I got to have a buddy in one of those houses. So it was kind of convenient. But I do understand as a freshman coming in, if you're not an athlete, it's a social tool. It gets you into where you need, and now you're buddies with the sororities and.
Those
TGs,
those TGs, I don't know what they call them at other campuses, but they were called TGs for us on Friday nights, where you'd pair up with a sorority and basically just party in the basement. Yeah. And they're already made. Like, you have your social guy that schedules all these things. So yeah, it was a good time from what I can remember.
It's good.
Game days.
If you're a freshman going into college or sophomore, it's a great social tool to just kind of network and get into that scene without having to find a way to get into the scene. And you know how it is. Some people, they ease into it pretty simply, and some it's kind of it's a little work for them. This makes it easier being a part of the frat. You really don't have to work at it.
Yeah. I had, a little bit of my story, so we don't need to go into detail about how easy that transition was as far as getting into the party scene. But that's for another day, Booney. We're talking to Brett Boone, former All-Star second baseman. All right, you may have heard us, Rob and I. We got intern Rob in today with Bohm out. And
big intern Rob, how's it going? How's it going, son?
Thanks for asking. Very nice to meet you, Mr. Boone.
Mr. Boone.
Yeah, see, he knows. See, Rob, Chico doesn't have that ultimate respect. He doesn't call me Mr. Boone. He calls me Boone, Brett,
Booney.
Things that my mom would call me.
Maverick. Brett Boone, former All-Star second baseman, host of the Brett Boone podcast. All right, we were talking, Rob and I, he had a fair foul right at the end of the question that we had right before we brought you in about the Guardians and them making noise. And I basically said, and I know you've said this many times, and I'll just have you reiterate it, but right now, here's the good news. Okay, the Guardians are only 4.5 games back. The AL Central Division is a joke. So, yes, they're still in it. Tanner Bybee continues to just be solid. Now Gavin Williams, it seems like the light bulb's gone off. So the pitching, which seems to be the story every year, now they've got 2 more, and if there's a silver lining in all the BS that happened with injuries, this is it. Now, the reality is, I don't think they're going to do anything. I don't think they can do anything because you just got too many young guys in this lineup right now, Gabriel Arias and Brian Rocchio, and they might end up being great players, and hopefully they will be, but I don't care how talented you are, Booney, making that jump and consistently being in the major leagues and facing major league pitchers, it's an entirely, pardon the pun, an entirely different ballgame.
Without a doubt. Everybody's got to go through it, and everybody feels their way, and everybody's on a different time clock. And some guys it clicks from day one, and some guys it takes a year. And that's a part of it. It's trial and error. It's a lot of guys come to the big leagues and they want to prove, all right, I belong here in the big leagues, and they overdo they forget what got them there. I went through a little bit of it myself, and I'm up in the big leagues, and I tear it up in AAA, and I'm hitting 330, and that's why I'm in the big leagues. And in the big leagues, and now I'm trying to do something and satisfy all this big league staff until you get to a point where, listen, I'm here for a reason. I got here for a reason. I'm not going to just get here one way and then abandon it and become a different player. So it's a process that most of us have to go through. There are the exceptions. There are the Mike Trouts. There are the Bryce Harpers. There are the Ken Griffey Juniors that from day one, it clicks. But that's more the exception, not the rule. And I disagree with you about they're out of it for the year. You got 6 weeks to go. I just watched a Mariner team who pretty much were dead and buried. They rattled off 9 in a row. They were in the wild card for a minute, just for an evening, Then they lost 3 straight, and then they won one last night. So, and it's pitching. The Mariners pitched, Cleveland pitches.
Yeah,
and with these young players, Saval, I don't like the Saval deal. I don't like moving him at the deadline. I didn't like that. I don't care if it was an optimum time. He was your number one on that staff for now, with Bieber and McKenzie being out for the time being. Kind of that veteran guy to kind of, I don't want to say coach, but kind of be the captain of the ship and let these young guys fall in behind him who are doing a great job. And I think you're right, do have bright futures. But I'm not gonna count them out yet. They're 4.5 out of a mediocre, to me, average Minnesota Twins team, and all it takes is a little bit of a run. Now, granted, you've got to get on that run. Easy to say, well, do we have a 6 out of 7, an 8 out of 9 in us?
That's just it. I'm glad you brought that up. I don't think they do, but I hope
they might,
I'm wrong.
and you may be right, without a doubt. But they pitch better than the Twins do. Here's the thing. Okay, maybe they don't have a 6 out of 7, 8 out of 9 in them. Do the Twins have a 1 and 6 in them? Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
That's true.
And you just hold serve. You play 500 ball, and the Twins you can't get into one of those where you lose 8 out of 9. Now you're done. Now it's on, the writing's on the wall. But I don't know. I don't love Cleveland's chances, but at the same time, I'm not counting them out yet. I'll talk to you. We'll talk next week, and then we'll talk a week after that, and maybe so, or maybe not. But right now, I'm not counting them out. They've got one more head-to-head with the Twins. I believe it's September 4th. They got a 3-game series. So it's not like they have a lot of games where we could say destiny's in your own hands. It's a 3-game series. It can be a statement. Maybe it's a 2.5 or a 3-game lead, and you go into that Twin series and you take 2 out of 3. It makes a little bit of a statement. But we're too far away from September 4th.
Yeah, I mean, they do.
Start.
Okay, to your point, they have 6. Yeah, you're right. I mean, they have a homestand where they've got 3 at home against Minnesota. They've got 3 on the road against Minnesota at the end of this month.
Oh, they do.
Yeah. Here's what I'm worried about, though. Before they play Minnesota, they've got the game against Cincinnati. They wrap up with the Reds today. Great win last night, 3-0. They're at home against the Tigers for 4 games. Should be pretty good. But after that, you've got 3 with the Dodgers at home. Then you go on the road, 3 against the Blue Jays, 3 against the Twins. Then you return home, but then you've got 3 against Tampa Bay, and you've got 3 against Minnesota. Is Booney still with us?
We just lost him.
We lost him. All right. Well, let's see if he can.
A moment to rejoin.
Yeah. All right, so I mean, technically, let's just say this. I mean, of course they're not out of it because the division is technically still up for grabs. I just don't know if they have, like he said, and you're going to have to, and the Guardians have done this. They did this last year. You're going to have one of those runs where you win, say 5, 6, 7. I mean, you really go on a streak. I don't know if they can do that. Bybee has been outstanding. Williams, after those 2, it's hit or miss. Syndergaard, the bullpen, while Clase has been outstanding, in last year and still is leading the major leagues in saves, I believe, or his second or third. But he's had his ups and downs, and then that everyday lineup. All right, Booney's back with us. So, Booney, when you dropped off there, I was talking about the schedule, and they do. You're right. I mean, 6 games against Minnesota still left is a big deal. Could go either way. But after the Cincinnati series wrapping up today, they've got 4 at home against Detroit. Then they've got Freddie Freeman and the Dodgers. Then on the road to Toronto and Minnesota. Then home to Tampa. I just feel like this schedule.
Oh, it's not going to be easy.
Right.
It's not going to be easy. But anything could happen. Dodgers kind of on cruise control now. They got that division kind of wrapped up.
Let me ask you about them. Are they? I mean, Atlanta. We've been talking about Atlanta all year long, and the Dodgers have kind of had their moments. And right now, who would you take? I mean, the Dodgers.
It's not even close.
Who?
Atlanta Braves.
Ooh, not even close. You say?
For me, it's not even close.
Wow.
Dodgers have been sneaky. They've been sneaky lately. The way they've been playing outstanding, one of the best records in baseball. and nobody's been talking about them.
Yeah, I guess
They've been
that's what, yeah.
they've been so good for so long. But I look at that roster, it's not what it was a year ago. Playing great, still have Kershaw at the top of the ticket. Gonsolin's not having the year. Urias, one of my favorite pitchers in the game, not having the year that he was a year ago. Miller kid's doing a good job for him. Bullpen solid team, solid culture. They've built that over the last 5, 6, 7 years in LA. They expect to win. It's almost a Tampa Bay atmosphere. You come to spring training and it's the way it is. Atlanta, the 90s, Cleveland in the 90s. It's a culture. You come to the ballpark, you come to spring training every year. Yeah, it's not a matter of whether we're going to the postseason. How far are we going to go? Are we going to have a chance to win a ring? And I think that's great to set that culture up. Dodgers have definitely done that. But as far as best teams in the game, Dodgers aren't in my top 3. Atlanta's the best. Baltimore's probably number 2. Texas 3, maybe Dodgers 4.
Okay, I'm glad you brought up Texas. I want to go to the AL West here. We're talking to Brett Boone, former All-Star second baseman, host of the Brett Boone podcast. So we always talk about it. Hey, the regular season, you got to slog through 162 games, and it's a pain in the ass. But once you get to the postseason, everybody's 0-0, and you go for it. Astros seem to have that culture that you just talked about, and
yep,
they seem kind of like that. I mean, Texas is loaded, and they even improved at the deadline. But it just feels like, to me, like the Astros are, well, they're the Astros. Like they're just they're content right now with sitting back.
Doesn't it seem like they're in a bike race?
Yes.
And the Astros are they're sitting on your tail. What do they call it when you're getting the draft from the guy in the lead?
Tailgate.
No.
Yeah, no. I know.
Tour de France, when the guy's leading, but the guy on the number 2 is drafting or whatever they call
drafting.
It.
That's
seems
it.
like
that's it. Yeah.
It seems like the Astros are just sitting there in the behind, but not really behind. I don't know. The Rangers, they're awful good, and they're awful good. Scherzer's got some new life breathed into him coming out of that Mets situation, getting traded at the deadline. Gray's had a tremendous year. They get at Montgomery from St. Louis. Underrated pickup. He's pretty good. Gives them versatility. Evalde, he's got to come back. He's got that forearm. They're taking it easy with him. They've got so much flexibility in that starting rotation. I mean, you've got 7 starters in Texas. They're going to have to fight to who's going to be the 5. It's going to be Scherzer, Evalde, Gray, for sure. Montgomery, that's for sure 4.
We got to see Scherzer and Verlander go against each other. I mean, like the Major League Baseball gods have to make that happen in the postseason.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know. I think the Rangers are awful good. So I'm not going to just say, yeah, it's a fun story to say Houston just sitting there drafting. We learned that new word today. But this Texas Ranger team, they've been resilient all year. Best offense, I still think, in baseball. Some guys, you could argue the Atlanta Braves. But this top to bottom, Jung got hurt. He fractured his wrist, so he's going to be out there. Their young third baseman, who's a stud, by the way. But they've got so much firepower. Corey Seager's having an unbelievable year, and the problem with him has always been he can't stay healthy.
Yep.
He can't stay on the field. But when he's on the field, he's a beast. I mean, he's hitting 350. He's got 22 homers, 73 ribbies, and he's missed 6-7 weeks of the season. This guy's having an unbelievable year. They're just a really good team, top to bottom. There's no weakness. You know what's fun? I look at the Rangers. I look at their roster. I look at their stats, and they look like they're good players. I'm used to looking at these stats now. It's 234, 216, 249, 253. Wow, he's an all-star. 253, you're mediocre. 230, you stink.
Yep.
I don't care how many homers you got. But in today's society, we're not told that. We're told, no, they're good. Look at his OPS. Okay, whatever. The Rangers team, you look at that Rangers roster, those Rangers statistics, they look like good players. Seager, you're hitting 350. That's what a great player does. Simeon's hitting 282 with 19 and 78. That's what a really good player hits. Garcia's got 91 ribbies, 30 homers, hitting 258, 30 and 91 at this pace pace of this at this stage of the season, I'll take the 258. That's fine. I don't know. I just love it. I love their backup shortstop who has filled in for Seager, now is getting regular playing time because he's earned it. Duran, he's got 14 homers, hitting 285, filling in at short, filling in. He could be, 80% of the teams out there, he's a starting shortstop. So it's refreshing for me to watch the Rangers and up and down that lineup, how good they really are, and that staff is really good too. You got Chapman and
that was a
Smith,
big acquisition.
who won a World Series with the Atlanta Braves, fighting over for who's getting those close. Yeah, who's getting the closing detail? You got Chapman setting up right now.
Yeah,
and he's the Chapman of old. I mean, he's pitching well again. So they're in a really, really good spot. Dodgers always scary. A year ago, they won 111. They've been doing it under the radar this year. Maybe that's the way to do it in this new format. Maybe it's to do it under the radar, come in, not have things wrapped up in 2 months in advance. Have to fight for a little bit. Have that fight going into the postseason. Maybe that's the new formula to winning is having a battle all year instead of just cruising from the All-Star break on. Who knows?
Yeah.
I don't know what the formula is. I'm just making good talk radio right here.
Well, and that's what you do on a regular
Chico.
Basis, and that's why we bring
I'm
you
giving you scenarios so people out there can say, "Oh, he's wrong."
All right,
okay.
Let me go to the AL East here, and before I know the Yanks and the Mets have been struggling in New York. They've been the top, but specifically the American League East here. For the longest time it was. Baltimore's it's the great story, but how well will they do in the postseason? That still remains to be seen. Tampa, though, Booney, they're one of those teams like we talk about over the years in sports. You don't count out Jordan, you don't bet against Tiger, you don't bet against Belichick or Brady. But I feel like with the Rays, it's just been. How many injuries are too many? I feel like they've reached their quota. This has been unbelievable with that rotation.
Yeah, McClanahan down.
Yeah.
One of the best pitchers in the game. You got problems with your, got a little bit of a scandal going with their young superstar, Wander Franco. A lot going on over there in Tampa Bay. But I think Baltimore at this stage of the season, they're more than an anomaly. They're more than a nice story now.
Yeah.
I just watched a series. They just played the Mariners, who are playing as good as they've played all year with as good as a starting rotation as there is in the game, my opinion. And they just took the last two. Kirby pitched 9-inning shutout baseball, ended up losing 1-0 to a Baltimore Oriole team. The back end of that bullpen for Baltimore, it's elite, as good as it gets, as good as anyone in the game. And I don't know, they might be a little bit more than a nice story. This Baltimore Oriole team is one of the best teams in baseball. They're resilient. They're young. They have an unbelievable. You can tell they love playing this game. They like playing together. They like each other as teammates. They're pulling on the same end of the rope, and they have that it factor where they know. And I always say this: it's not an egotistical. It's not from an arrogant. It doesn't come from an arrogant place. They just know that when that game is close and late, more times than not, they're going to come out on top. And that's something you can't go into a season and predict. It just kind of organically comes to you on certain teams, certain groups of players. And it seems like watching them, they kind of just know, like, hey, give us a chance. Keep us close and late, and we're going to win this game. And like I said, back end of that bullpen, Bautista finishing things. How great you've got in Cleveland. You guys got to watch Clase for years, and he's been unbelievable. Watch this Bautista guy.
Oh, yeah.
He's ridiculous.
Yep.
It makes me, Chico, and I've said this on the show before, it makes me so glad I don't have to grab a bat and jump into that box. That scares me right now. And I've never been scared of anything. Bautista scares me. I don't want to. That's embarrassment waiting to happen. He's going to get me to chase that split.
How the hell are you more afraid of Felix Bautista than you were Randy Johnson? John Crook peed down his leg, for God's sake. That's the big unit.
Well, I'm not scared like I'm going to get hurt scared. I'm scared like I'm really going to get embarrassed. And I don't that's our worst nightmare as a hitter. No matter what happens, do not embarrass yourself. I feel like Bautista could embarrass me right now.
All right, last thing for you. And Brett Boone, the former All-Star second baseman, host of the Brett Boone podcast, which we'll get to here.
What do you need from me?
Hey, just pipe down, will you?
Into golf mode.
We talk about the 90s. You mentioned, the cultures and stuff. So this weekend, this Saturday, in my opinion, he's still to this day one of the best right-handed hitters I've ever seen. But Manny Ramirez is going into the Indians/Guardians Hall of Fame. Right. He's probably not going to be in baseball's Hall of Fame because twice with the whole, the performance enhancers, whatever. I'm just curious. I say the name Manny Ramirez. You played against him and those teams. Like, your thoughts on Manny Ramirez?
When he steps into the box, that's Albert Einstein, one of the best right-handed hitters of my generation.
Yeah.
I want to be honest, he's one of the best right-handed hitters of all time. Manny was a guy that I studied the second half of my career when I really started to pay attention. Edgar, I've talked at length about Edgar Martinez being a semi-mentor of mine, more of a good buddy, teammate, a guy that I looked to and respected how he went about his business and how great of a hitter he was. So my second half of my career, when I got reunited with Edgar as a teammate, I really watched him and talked to him and asked a lot of questions. Why do you win batting titles? I want to be better. I know I've got more in the tank than what I'm doing. And he helped me a lot. Guy I watched a lot was Manny Ramirez. And he was the most disciplined, probably the most disciplined hitter I've ever seen, as sticking with his program, going up with a plan and never, when I say never, I mean never waver from that plan. And I would watch him because I knew what he was doing. Because I started thinking like him. I used to formulate my plans based on what Manny does. And so I knew exactly how he thought. And I'd watch him during certain bats and I'd know what he was looking for. And I'm going to see if he sticks with it. And that sucker would not waver. He never got away from his plan. It's a big way. I wasn't as good a hitter as Manny, but I prepared like him in some of my big years. I took that Manny Ramirez approach. Like, some days I'm going to win, some days I'm going to lose. But over 162 games, if I have a plan when I leave that on deck circle and I execute that plan, more time I'm going to be the best player I can be individually over 162 games. Early in my career, and I think a lot of young players, what we do is we have kind of a plan and we're on deck and we've got all these different scenarios going through our mind. We go to the home plate and we change mid at bat. Like, my plan was to do X, but man, now I got to do Y. And I did that. It's part of being a young player and it's part of learning. But watching him, man, I get, this is my passion for the game. And when I get talking about hitters, and especially right-handed hitters, because left-handed hitters I can't really relate to. Everything's breaking into them. Everything's breaking away from us.
Like, I think he's in now. I'm not saying he's this guy in terms of the numbers.
He's in rare air, man.
Like, I don't think I'm not saying he is Miguel Cabrera, but I think he's every bit deserving of being in that conversation. I guess it would be
without a doubt.
All right.
Without a doubt, he's Pujols. He's Miguel Cabrera. Yes, he is. Look at his numbers. They're gaudy.
He had 100. You know what I didn't realize? How about this? 1990, you drove in, 140 in 2001, and that is a ridiculous.
That's a lot of runs. I felt like I drove in 1,000 runs that year.
I forgot about
that. Manny drove in like 160 one year.
165 in 19. That's still the single season record for the 165 runs in 99.
Well, the all-time record is Hack Wilson.
191.
That was at a time where they were. Who knows what they were hitting back then. But he drove in more than a run a game. That's ridiculous. In the modern era. That's absurd.
Last thing on Manny, I'll say, and we got Bobby DiBiasio from the senior VP for the Tribe coming on tomorrow to talk about Manny. And all we're just talking about Manny the hitter. Then there's the Manny being Manny stories.
Manny the mem.
But like
Me.
I've never seen Booney, and I'm not, and this is, I think, speaks to you saying how disciplined he was. I don't think I'm being too dramatic when I say I don't think I ever saw Manny take a swing where he looked off balance. Like, you know what I mean? Like most guys, I mean,
Well, he would bait you. He would bait you. If he took a bad swing or he was badly fooled, he would use that for later in the game. And I would go, as an older player, I'd go to my pitchers and I'd have conversation with them about Manny because, let's be honest, pitchers aren't the smartest. And I'd go to him and I'd say, listen, come here. This guy, I think like this guy. My program is based on Manny, so I know how he's thinking. This is what he's waiting for. 8th inning, we're within a run or two of each other. Do not do this because he's sitting on your neck. And if you give him this pitch, he's Manny. He's Manny for a reason. So he's one of those guys, man. He's one of those guys I get talking about him.
He's a dude,
like,
as the kids say. He's a dude.
Yeah, and then his Mr. Magoo personality they just added to the lovability of Manny. Like,
okay, so did you hear? I think I've told you this off the air, maybe not. But my favorite Manny story, and of course we're going to tell it again tomorrow. But have I told you the Chad OJ story with Manny? I think I did. So the OJ. Okay,
I'll
so
humor you.
The OJ. You always do. That's why I like you. The OJ trial's going on in 95. I mean, you were, they had the strike in 94, 95. You're playing the season, so I'm guessing every day in the clubhouse. That's clubhouse chatter with teams.
Right.
Same here in Cleveland. So Manny, I don't think it was like the live chase, but remember when OJ Simpson's in the Ford Bronco with Al Collins, and
right.
Everybody from, if you're an accountant, a ball player, whatever, you're going, oh my gosh, what's going on? Oh, the OJ chase. He's in that Ford Bronco. So Manny walks over, and they have the Indians at the time had that reliever in their bullpen, Chad OJ, OGEA.
Right. LSU. He beat me in the final game at LSU to keep my USC Trojans from going to the College World Series. I remember Chad.
Good tidbit. Well, Manny thought that was who was in the Ford Bronco. He just heard OJ, and he's
how about Manny's first homer that wasn't a homer? He hit a double. I mean, his career starts out like that. What do you think it's going to be?
Watching Carlos Baerga. Carlos Baerga was he couldn't stop laughing.
By the way, when Manny went to L.A., that's one of the biggest put the team on my shoulders and carry a team performance I've ever seen.
Doesn't get talked about enough. You're exactly right.
It's unbelievable. But yeah, he's a guy. I reached out to Manny the other day, and he responded about coming on the podcast.
I love it.
But there's been no follow-up. It's like you get a response. Yeah, Booty, sure.
It's like when you'd find $20,000 checks in his glove compartment.
Give me some dates, man. So I'd love to have him. I'd love to pick his brain. Recently we had Big Papi, David Ortiz, on the show, and
awesome.
He talked about how much he learned from Manny when he came over from Minnesota. He said Manny and him, and they became good buddies, but he said, I learned a lot from him, how he thought, how he went through his day, how he went through at bats. And he said, David said, I learned a lot from Manny Ramirez. And that's pretty high praise coming from, in my opinion, one of the greatest postseason players of all time. And obviously regular season too, but Ortiz late in his career in those postseasons took it to another level. So high praise coming from him about Manny Ramirez. So yeah, as a player, as a guy, once he as an offensive player, from the right side, it's about as good as it gets.
Coming up on the podcast, the aforementioned award-winning, I think if it isn't, it should be Brett Boone podcast. Who's coming up?
Albert Pujols is out today.
Who
do we got coming up next? Ryan Dempster next week. Harold Reynolds is coming back on the show. Talk the stretch run. I've got it one of my favorites.
Ryan Dempster was a badass, by the way, if I'm not mistaken. Like he could.
He'll drill you.
Yeah, he was a badass.
We talked about that a little bit. Favorite of mine, Mark McLemore. He's now doing the pre and post for the Texas Rangers.
Played with you in Seattle, right? Did he
Played
play
with me in Seattle.
Yeah.
He played with my dad in Anaheim. So he's one of those guys that could give you some real insight. He played with my dad and he played with me.
Wow.
He's the one that nicknamed me the Boone. And I got to catch up with Mac at the All-Star game. The Mariners had him in for the All-Star game last month. And he's just, I said, Mac, I want you to come on the podcast. He's like, Booty, I've been checking you out, And I said, you got a lot of interesting stuff. I'm looking forward to my Mark McLemore. I'm gonna shoot that next week. So we got some good ones, and we'll keep them coming. I'm still working. Tim McGraw, I'm working. I got a text from his brothers, with a screenshot of Tim saying, "Yeah, I'll come on. We just got to get a time." I've been waiting 2 years. Let's go.
I mean, you got to get. You know what it is?
Get it together.
Get Bob on that because we obviously the late great Tug.
Right.
I mean, he was Bob and Tug were tight, weren't they?
Faith, I'm gonna go through my Faith Hill connection.
All right, now you're getting crazy. I mean, come on, you're not big enough to
I don't
be
have any
Faith Hill.
connection. No, I don't know. But in the short term, we got some really good shows coming up.
Booney, we appreciate the time as always, buddy. Appreciate it, and we will talk to you again next week, my friend. Thanks.
You got it. Later.
All right, that is Brett Boone, the former All-Star second baseman. How about that stuff on Manny? I didn't even know that. I've talked to him a bunch off the air, and we've talked about a lot of those Cleveland players, those teams from the 90s, and I did not know to that extent. I know he loves Manny. Everybody, as a hitter, everybody loved Manny. Like he had one of the prettiest swings, and when I say balance, it's kind of one of those hard things to describe in baseball, but he never, ever, ever looked fooled. Even when he was fooled, he didn't look fooled. It was unbelievable. And I think one of the things, and DiBiasio I know is going to touch on this tomorrow because he's talked about it in the past too, but Booney hit on it. Manny, because, you assume with Manny Ramirez, Manny being Manny, he's aloof. And yes, he had God-given ability. I mean, it goes without saying. Manny worked his ass off. Those guys in the cages back in the 90s, like Tomey and Bell and Ramirez, Charlie Manuel, they worked their tails off in the batting cages. And Booney's right. Manny, he said Einstein in the box. People don't realize that. That's a big deal. That was pretty cool. And I know, Bob, that you better be a huge Manny, even though I know you weren't alive and you were just a thought at that point. You can even appreciate Manny Ramirez.
I can appreciate him based off what my dad has told me. So he followed the then Indians, now Guardians a little bit then, and he said the first thing he told me, it's a funny thing. He said they paid someone to follow Manny Ramirez around just to follow him. That was just it. That was just his job. Just be with him at all times like a parent. And I just couldn't believe it. But
there's so many stories. I mean, I was joking about the checks, but I think that's a real story. He had one of the clubhouse attendants, I think, is a story that he had them go, get his car detailed, whatever. And I guess they were detailing it, and they found a check in there for $20,000 that he just hadn't cashed. And they're like, Manny, don't you? You can keep it. I can't do that. It's $20,000 or $10,000, whatever it was. He's awesome. But going into the Hall of Fame, Manny bobblehead night Saturday night. We'll talk to Bobby D about that tomorrow. All right, we'll come back. A couple things I want to get to. Recap again. Getting ready for the Browns and the Eagles tomorrow night. Recap what we saw yesterday, heard about yesterday from day 2 of the joint practices. And I haven't talked about this yet. Yesterday, obviously, we got sidetracked a great deal, but that's okay. This Michael Orr story from The Blind Side. Wow. It's fascinating. We'll explain. We'll talk a little bit about it when we come back in the final half hour. It's the Chico Borman Show with you until 1 o'clock right here on the Big Play Sports Network. All righty, welcome back. Chico Borman Show here on this Wednesday. Good to have you along as we broadcast live from our beautiful studios here at Burke Lakefront Airport on a gorgeous day. And as I look out, I believe that's the good time 2 or 3 or whatever number it is. Just kind of, slowly going along Lake Erie. It's awesome being here at Burke. All right, we'll be with you until 1 o'clock. Stream the show live on Twitter at Chico Show CLE. Also on YouTube. Go to the Chico Borman Show. If you are not subscribing, do so now, and we appreciate that. Couple things I want to get to. First of all, this just came out about an hour ago, but this is big news. Marlon Humphrey of the Baltimore Ravens, not only their best corner, one of the best corners in the game, like top 5, easy. You could even make a case maybe for top 3 when he's healthy. Okay, here we go. Pro Bowl cornerback Marlon Humphrey will undergo foot surgery, delivering a big hit to the thinnest position on the Baltimore Ravens. Yeah, that's the thing. They defensively, they're still looking as far as getting to the quarterback. That's going to be an issue. And their secondary, it's like, well, we hope Marlon Humphrey stays healthy because if he goes down, Rock Yassin he's good. But he's not Marlon Humphrey. No one is. They're thin back there. And Ravens coach John Harbaugh saying today it's a foot injury. It's one that has been lingering for him. Harbaugh said today it's not going to be a long-term deal. This has been an issue for him for a while. And you're talking about a foot. You're talking about a position where you're planning and backpedaling, and that's your game. This is big. Now maybe this is one of those where you know what, he delayed surgery, or I'm going to see if it heals on its own. If I have this surgery, I don't want to speak if I don't know everything about it, and I don't. But it could be one of those things where I delayed it as long as I can. Doctor says if I get the surgery now, I'll be good. Maybe not for the opener, but first month, and then we're done with it. Maybe. But if this does linger, or if there is an issue, this is a huge, huge shot for the Baltimore Ravens and their chances and all that stuff, because their defense is already a little suspect. Now you take out their best corner. Their pass rush isn't great. You're thin on the backside. Hey, wow, that's big news, intern Rob. Big news.
Very big news. And I was just looking at the Ravens depth chart, and
not good.
Wasn't looking too promising. Like you said, Rock Yassin, not a terrible player, a pro, but not exactly number 1 corner material. And the rest of the guys are looking like depth players, but they're going to have to step it up. But hopefully Humphrey's okay. You never want to see anyone going down with injuries. But foot, especially the position at corner, that's his life's on his feet. That's what lets him eat.
Yeah, their top corners on the field today, Brandon Stevens and Kevon Seymour, who's on his 4th team in his 6-year career. I forgot about this. I remember Trayvon Mullen because I remember watching Hard Knocks when he was drafted by the Raiders, never panned out. 2019 second-round pick by the Raiders. They lost him before camp began to a toe injury. And they have 1, 2, 3 other guys who are sidelined, and Damarian Williams is expected to be out until October. This is like there's thin, and then there's like dental floss thin. Wow, this is big. This is big news. Reporting this is Jeremy Fowler, or I should say Jameson Hensley, covering the Ravens for ESPN. So we'll keep our eye on that. Browns, as we said, getting ready for the Eagles tomorrow night in Philly. You won't see the ones. You won't see. That's what the last 2 days were about. They got out of there relatively unscathed. I think we were panicking a bit, which I get. You hear initially Myles Garrett hurts his foot, and you're immediately thinking, oh my gosh, it's from the Pro Bowl before or last year. It's a continuation, and now you re-injure it. Anytime it's Myles Garrett, it's a huge deal. Anytime, right now you've got Jack Conklin with a concussion, but really unscathed. Got a little heated yesterday, as I said earlier in the show. I think that's a good thing. believe it or not, September 10th is right around the corner, and when the Bullets are flying for real, they're flying for real. They're flying fast. They're meant to hurt, and it's, you got to be ready. And we've said it time and again, Rob, but this schedule right out of the gate, you've got 3 of your first 4 against the division, opening, of course, with the Cincinnati Bengals. So they've got some things to work. Every team has things to work on, but the Browns, the red zone. And just, again, I feel, even though the defense was such a big question mark last year, and I don't know if it's only because, I think it's a combination of Jim Schwartz and what they've done up front, and with Thornhill and McLeod on the backside. But I feel okay about the defense. It's the offense that I don't know about, because the timing, and are they on the same page? I don't know. I feel like we won't know until September 10th.
I'd say we feel, and I could say most fans would feel that way about the defense, because for the first time ever, aside from Zadarius Smith, but even him would be wrong to say that, I feel him, they went for the safe, solid players to fill in positions, people that are proven, some veterans that had shown the ability to do a job in a scheme.
And actually like to practice, unlike some guys we know.
But with the offense, it's still those boomer bust guys. Deshaun Watson, he could go back to being a top 10 quarterback, or he could stay a bottom 28 guy. He's the end.
That's scary to think
about.
about.
Elijah Moore. Yes, he's shown promise, but will he take that step? Can he be this Deebo Samuel type tool? But on the other side, you got guys like Dalvin Tomlinson, who have proven that they could get out and do a job and plug up the middle. Zadarius Smith, multiple double-digit sack seasons. Juan Thornhill, a starter on a champion twice. So that's why I feel like in Cleveland, you're more feeling safe about the defense than the offense.
Okay. All right. In closing, let me get to this. And I'm guessing from your reaction, I noticed your reaction when I mentioned it before we took a break. This whole Michael Orr, the blind side story that is broken, it was actually like 2 days ago. You saw this, I'm guessing?
I've heard about it, but the thing with stuff like this is now you're seeing things from all angles. You see the counter,
and that's what I'm getting at.
It's getting real confusing.
Yeah, because initially, I'll be honest with you, at first you always go to that. Oh man, you know what? They took advantage. That's BS. They took advantage of him, and then you go back and you say, like it's just trying to sort it out and what makes sense. Like, oh, they didn't adopt him. Well, they didn't adopt him. He was going to turn 18. Now the whole conservatorship. Whatever. So now we're talking business deals. Now we're talking money. But I mean, this is how many years ago was this? And like, he's had agents. He's had people around him. Like if he was, I want him to get every last dime. But it just. A lot of this doesn't make sense. And why did it take so long? And he's had financial guys and gals around him since he had a good NFL career. Wouldn't somebody have noticed this? Like, hey, where's the money from the Blind Side movie? Oh, I mean, it just, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense, but it's bizarre nonetheless.
One of the crazy ones I saw, and for all I know, it could be true because you see stuff from both ends. You usually assume it's something in the middle, but some report I said that he had to sign off with the family, the Tui family, to just do anything up to like still even at 37 years old. Like that's what some reports said about the contract and the conservatorship was that he was still checking in with them all the way up to that. So maybe that's why it came out so late. Again, to me, that sounds really crazy for a 37-year-old man who's a pro and then had to go through agents and be on NFL teams. And wouldn't you have heard something about that sooner?
Yeah.
It's a really odd situation.
By the way, did you know that, you're a hoops guy. I did not realize this. Did you know that Sean Tui, he played for Ole Miss, hoops. He's been on the Memphis broadcast team for like 10, 15 years.
Completely unbeknownst to me.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. This is, like I said, we haven't heard the end of it, obviously. I think it won an Oscar, or at least was nominated. Made over $300 million at the box office. Went on to earn, nomination for Best Picture at the 2010 Academy Awards. Wow. This is just, it's bizarre. It's bizarre. So we'll see what happens. But like, if it happened, this is why money and family, like, it's just not, that's never a good combination. Nobody's going to, but yeah, as far as the time elapsed and all that stuff, we'll wait and see. But yeah, I did not know that about Sean Tuohy, that he played at Ole Miss, was pretty good at Ole Miss. And then, yeah, he's been on the Memphis, I think the television broadcast team for a while now. So.
I did know that he played at Ole Miss, but I think in summation of this whole thing is that it seems worse because it's The Blind Side, and it was such this like wholesome movie.
Good point.
Everyone loves it. You just think, like, oh, it's the perfect family. They did this super nice.
Why can't we just have our feel good moment?
Nobody wants to hear that. So hopefully they could get everything together, but that's real crazy.
Yeah, we're gonna have to. We'll, obviously, it's like I said, it's not over yet. We'll keep our eye on it and see what happens. But this broke a couple of days ago. We didn't have a chance to get to it. All right, that's going to do it for this edition on this Wednesday of the Chico Borman Show. Again, coming up tomorrow, Bob DiBiasio, Senior VP for the Guardians. Manny Ramirez going into the Indians Hall of Fame, Guardians Hall of Fame this Saturday night. We will talk more. Booney, I thought, had some really good insight on Manny the hitter, stuff that he hadn't even told me before about just how smart he was. But then we'll get to some of the very entertaining Manny being Manny stories. So Bobby D tomorrow, just after 11 o'clock with that. Obviously, we'll be getting ready for the Browns and the Eagles. Storylines leading up to that as well. Intern Rob, outstanding job. I wish you all the best. Now, you're still going to be with us, right? I know you're starting school at BW next week?
Yes, I'm moving in Sunday, first class Monday.
When's your first hoops game?
I'd say somewhere in November. November going to December.
Okay.
Regular college stuff.
Okay. All right. Good stuff. Well, best of luck this year in school, this year on the hardwood. And, of course, I'll be hopefully seeing you around here. As much as we might butt heads, like that's what makes this industry and this environment fun, and you're a part of that, and I think you have a very bright future. But yeah, and make sure you tell your mom that we're going to be collaborating.
She texted me about that.
We will tell Mama that we will have the fathead on the stick, and we will be showing up to the gym, and we will try. I can't guarantee. Well, I won't speak for her. I'll try not to embarrass you, but I can't guarantee anything.
I appreciate any and all support that y'all bring my way.
Best of luck to you, buddy.
Thank you.
All right. That'll do it. We'll be back with you again tomorrow, 11 to 1 with the Chico Borman Show for all of us here at Big Play. Make it a great Wednesday, everybody. See you.